This drummer started his career super young. Rockers may have seen him or heard him play with Candlebox, Ugly Kid Joe, Souls at Zero, Wrathchild America. But for the last 2 decades, he's been playing with Godsmack. I am joined by Shannon Larkin. They're on their Vibez Tour. How's that going so far? You're on a little break.
Yes, and what's up, everybody? Yes, the Vibez Tour is my favorite one yet. It's the coolest thing because it's a completely, after doing 8 months on the road last year, playing the same set, because, on the big shows, growing up, we all like our bands to try and play as much like the record as possible, right? And we famously don't use tracks or any kind of backing click tracks and all that shit. So playing last year, I pretty much play the same thing every night all year. So to come out and do this Vibez Tour, which is a completely different set list, and, we're playing in smaller venues after beating up the country last year. We played A, B, and C markets, you know what I mean? So we knew this year if we wanted to go play, we would have to do something different and do it in small venues. And so we did this one other time in 2004 when we put out The Other Side, which was an EP, an acoustic EP. And so it's kind of, this tour Vibez is kind of based on that premise of lava lamps and mushrooms, a cool, mellow, trippy vibe. But this time we implemented some cover songs in there that we all grew up and were influenced by, some Zeppelin, some Pink Floyd, and different Beatles and stuff like that. And it's not a fully acoustic show either. It's electric guitars and all, but it's just, there's no aggressive songs. There's fun songs, don't get me wrong. It's a fun show and it has energy, but it's not aggressive rock metal, you see, like Godsmack is known for. And so for me, that alone with being in the smaller venues, because being the drummer, you're so far from the crowd anyway. And, that's kind of the payoff is performing live. You get that energy from the crowd. And being the drummer, especially at these big festivals, there's 60 by 40 foot decks. I'm probably 50 feet from the front row even.
Right.
Where in these theaters, I can see every face. And so, I urge everybody, come out and check it out. It's the coolest thing I think we've done in many years.
We had a chance to see you live last year in September at Louder Than Life, and there had to be like 200,000 people there. So really scaling it down, the crowd being 2,000 to 3,000 people, does it feel like being in a whole different group?
Yeah, well, and we added a couple musicians for this. Scott Decato on keyboards and Timmy T on guitar. And so it even is a different band, really. Like, we still throw in a couple of the big hits and stuff, But like I said, it's been my favorite thing yet because of being a drummer. Like, you talk about 200,000 people. Yeah, I mean, there is a big wall of energy that I feel back there. But there's no personal intimacy with even the front row as a drummer. Because, again, I'm 50 feet from even the front row. Well, we're playing these 2,000 seaters. I can literally look up in the balcony and see people mouthing the words to a song or just smiling or crying or in it with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you guys don't have to worry about the big light show, the pyro, all of the bells and whistles. Like, does it scale down your team behind the scenes?
Oh, my God. We only have 28 people on our road crew and 5 buses instead of 8 buses, I think it was last year. And we had 12 trucks last year. That's on their gear. And this year we had 2. So our whole organization has been scaled down to this. Again, I use the word intimate. I don't use it lightly, because music should be intimate. And after a while, sometimes in the big successful band or whatever, you start to lose some of that, and it starts to feel like Groundhog Day. And what you don't want to get into in this business is where, you feel like you're just going through the motions, because music, again, it's important. It's an important part of all our lives, I feel. And for me and my musician friends, it's the most important part of our life, love and music. So, I think that this tour is all about love and music.
And it's great, too, because you guys are going to incorporate some stories, so it'll be educational, too, for the newer fans that haven't been around for your whole career.
Yeah, well, we threw that out there at a kind of a storyteller's kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But how it really ended up, was focusing on the songs. And there's a couple spots in the set where Sully talks to the crowd in depth for like a few minutes and explains what the song's about, or at one point he's just talking about music in general and how important it is to us. These are things that we really believe. It's not just an act, but it ended up being less of a storytellers and more about the music.
Okay. And so you're doing some covers. I know Sully has his solo work too, and some of that is pretty beyond. Are we going to hear any of those, like a song or two?
We played one Sully on a song off his first record, and for whatever reason, he dropped it from the set after like a week. And sequencing is very important in concert to Godsmack as well as on our records. And because we don't make like singles, we don't write a song for the radio. We're trying to write this body of work, right? Because we're old. So back when we were growing up, you'd buy a record and you'd have 10 songs or 12 songs or 9, so whatever it was. And, you would listen to it as a journey, and you'd put it on and you'd know for the next 45 minutes you're going to jam out on a new record you just got, right? Mm-hmm. Where nowadays, you go on the phone and you buy the song that you liked on the radio or whatever, which is fine. But we still continue to sequence our records as if it's a journey. And so we do the same thing with the live show. And so, it's designed to be a concert that lasts an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the crowd and on, how many encores we'll do. Because sometimes we'll come out literally and just get on the stage again and stay there for another half hour, 45 minutes, and play 6 songs. It depends on what the crowd wants,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But, that's basically the way the show evolves is what's important to us, so that you can take this journey with us through our musical past, and so that was the theme of the whole Vibez thing, along with mushrooms and lava lamps.
Because you guys have so much music, you have 8 albums, how do you decide what's on the playlist, or are you going just with the vibe of each song?
Well, on the big shows, it's the crowd. We have to play the hit songs. I mean, we're a radio band. That's what's made this band, period. Yeah. If it weren't for radio, we wouldn't be where we are. So, all these songs people are familiar with over the last 25 years. So we feel like there's at least 10 of them that we have to play. We can't get away with not playing I Stand Alone, Voodoo, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So this tour, though, the Vibez run, it's not like that. We're playing small venues, and so that means that only our true fans that know our deep cuts will come out. So for this one, we didn't have to worry about having to play this song or having to perform this song, because our fans are going to be mad at us if they leave and dude, play I Stand Alone. Yeah. You know what I mean? So guess what? This tour, we don't play I Stand Alone. We play One Rainy Day off the 4 record, or like you said, tons of music that we have that weren't commercial, radio rock hits. And so that's what we're focusing on this one. So most of the people in the crowd are either true fans that have been fans for many decades or years, or brand new fans that are just like, hey, this band Godsmack, let's go check them out. Those fans, they're going to see a completely different band. And if they do come see us in the summer when we go back to the big stuff, they'll be like, whoa, this is a different band.
Yeah. So did you find that you had to go back and rehearse a lot of these songs, because you haven't played many of them for a long time, like since the 4 album came out?
Oh, my God, relearn. That's what it was. Some of those songs I hadn't heard in 20 years, like Spiral or something. 2004, I think, was the last tour we did Spiral on.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorites, by the way. I love that song. So, yeah, it's been really cool, man. Like, that's half the fun is, like, people say, oh, that's a lot of work or whatever. Well, to us, that's the fun part, is, like, relearning songs. Because then now you're flooded with all these memories and emotions from that time in your life. It's like when you hear a song, and it's one of those songs that perhaps you heard as a kid on the radio, and you're driving down the road from work or whatever you're doing, and the song comes on, all of a sudden you just get a flood of memories from the moment you heard that song, or the time in your life that song was a part of you, It's like smell, it's the only other thing maybe. But, you get to catch a whiff and you're like, oh my God, it reminds you of your grandma's house.
Yeah.
Well, that's how music is,
Exactly.
So we try to be very aware and conscious of all that when we're making a set list,
Your last album that came out in 2023, Lighting Up the Sky, has been marked as your final album, but that doesn't mean this is your final tour, right?
No. It was never meant to mean that it was a final tour situation. We looked at it like, again, sequencing the set. And so we were now having to leave out 5, 6 songs that were literally number 1 hits to try and make a set of songs, right?
Yeah.
That we felt moved because as cool as it would be, a whole set of number 1 songs isn't a great set. You got to have valleys and peaks, at least to us. Parts where people can breathe or go to the bathroom. Parts where, they're excited and parts where they get to relax. And you make it like a trip, or we make it like a journey. So that hour and a half that you see us in concert, it should start off with a bang, but you should get some rests in there. So it goes up and down, right? And so, sequencing this set, that's a mellow set, was even probably harder than sequencing the big set. So the songs that we pick aren't for any other reason than how they're going to make the whole show as a whole be,
Right. So Candlebox, that you used to play for, they are on their final tour. What are your thoughts on them calling it a day when they're still so young?
Well, Kevin is a dear friend of mine. He's my favorite rock star. I love to say that. He's just such a good guy. And I'm very good friends with Pete Klett, too, they were like the Steven and Joe at the time, you know what I mean, of the band. And, but then the bassist and drummer left, and, they replaced the bass player and drummer, and that's when I had come in. And I never joined Candlebox, by the way, but I did tour for the Happy Pills tour. The album had just come out, and the drummer flaked and quit or whatever, and I got the call. I was actually in the band Amen at the time, and Candlebox's manager was also my band Amen's manager. And we had just finished a record. I had 3 months off, and Candlebox drummer split. So my manager called me, who was Candlebox manager, and said, hey, would you be interested? You got the time? And I said, sure. And that's how I did the Candlebox thing. So on your question about final tour stuff, it's kind of bittersweet because, they're still young. But me, I totally understand and get the sacrifice that is touring. And so, like Kevin Martin and Peter Klett, both those cats who I know really well, by the way, and are dear friends with, that I literally speak to, they're not going to quit making music and creating and being a musician and a rock star. In my eyes, Kevin Martin will always be a rock star. It doesn't matter if he has Candlebox. And so he will continue to sing and make music and do it now for reasons of the heart and soul, rather than having to be in this business where, you can't just go and tour, by the way, because there's budgets and roadies and trucks and buses and vans and flights and everything, gear, everything that goes along with that, right? So for that, you need management and agents and labels. And, people say, well, why final record? Well, I'm like, well, geez, we got how many records out and how many hits? It's like, when does it come time that we can just be a band and perform, you know what I mean, for the love of music again? And it's a shame, but it is a business. They don't call it the music business for nothing. And so with Kevin and the rest of the band deciding not to do it anymore, I'm with Kevin, and I totally understand, and I'm jealous.
Well, I know that you have turtles and koi fish and that you love spending time with. And with this, you're going to get a lot more home time, even though you're touring. So you're doing this Vibez run, but then back in the summer, you guys are going full bore and back to festivals, light shows, pyro, all the big stuff.
Yes, high energy rock. 6 shows this summer, and then we may do a fall run also in the arenas that would end Lighting Up the Sky cycle, which is cycle means, like you make a record, like what I've done for the last 40 years. You make a record, you tour. You make a record, you tour. And Groundhog Day forever if you devote your life to this business like I have. So, I'm looking forward to the end of this year, so we'll get a big break, you know what I mean? And I can be with my fish and turtles and kind of normalize and depressurize and and find my stillness again. Because, we put 600 to 800 miles under our belt every single night and wake up in a different town every day. And 8 months out of last year, we toured. Wow. And so right now, I've enjoyed 2 weeks at home. I got about 3 or 4 days left, and then I got to go back out there. But then we're going to get a proper break and have most of the summer off, 6 big shows. And then we hope to go out in, I think it's September, October, and then end the lighting up the sky cycle by Halloween. But none of that's booked yet, except for the 6 shows in the summer and this next month of vibing.
Well, the Vibez Tour is going to be awesome. And we're going to see you at Caesars Windsor April 26th with special guest Bastion DeCruz. That's a neat story how that got started. He's the son of one of your crewmen?
Yeah, our production manager, Peter DeCruz. And he's from Copenhagen, and we had met him and found him for a European tour for Legends Rise record, which was 2018. And man, he was the best production manager we ever had. So we said, hey, will you join our crew, man, and do the world with us? And he said, oh yes. And he had played us his son, by the way, who is an amazing, it's just him and his acoustic guitar. And he's an amazing, singer-songwriter with this sweet voice. He's probably 23, man, a young guy. And we thought, why would we, and I'm not, trying to brag or whatever, but we don't really need an opening band at all on something of this stature, in theaters and stuff. And we were thinking of just being an evening with. But when Peter played us his son's thing, and we just thought, wow, man, let's have Bastion open up and just do. He only does a half-hour set, goes up and sings 5 or 6 songs, and so far it's mixed reactions. With the hardcore Godsmack fans are like, oh, why are you an acoustic singer-songwriter? But most people are like, wow, this kid's really good, and it's opening a lot of people up to this unknown kid from Copenhagen, Denmark. Man, I think it's wonderful.
Well, it's awesome to give him that spotlight, coming up to your show. You've done that for a lot of great bands, Shine Down, Hailstorm, Puddle of Mud, and Bastion DeCruz. Can't wait to see what he's got.
How about that? That makes me feel really good to hear it out loud. I forgot about that. Yeah, Shine Down, their first U.S. tour, Hailstorm, same thing. That's pretty cool, man. It makes me feel old, but it's cool.
So what's on your playlist these days? And then I'll wrap it up because I've taken a ton of your time. But what is on your playlist these days?
I haven't been listening to music because of having to learn a whole new set of music from Godsmack. Played probably 20 years, and as well as a bunch of covers and stuff. And so for the last 4 months, I haven't been able to listen to much music, but when I feed my koi fish, I always just play an Apple playlist, and it's always either psychedelic hits of the 60s and 70s, which is a good one on there.
Yeah.
And so you're hearing your Hendrix and Floyd and Beatles and, Creedence and all the Zeppelin and, Sabbath, all the bands that directly influenced me in the 70s, And then I'll also listen to hits of the 60s and 50s, which my dad grew up playing, where I'll hear all the Elvis, Buddy Holly and all that kind of stuff. I enjoy that now. I haven't listened to much modern music in many years as I try to make modern music, because I feel like everything sounds the same, and people could argue we do too, and who knows. But I do know that, I don't listen to much modern music. My daughter, I do have a 26-year-old daughter, so she tries to keep me up on the things that are happening in the world musically, and so she turned me on to, last week, Beyonce singing Dolly Parton's Jolie, fantastic, by the way, and the new Ariana Grande record, which I really enjoyed. This old rocker, punk rocker, blues guy. But I liked Ariana's new album. I think she's very, very, very talented singer and cute as a button. So that's about it.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time with me, Shannon, and we'll see you at Caesars Windsor April 26th. And best of luck with the rest of the Vibez Tour and your big summer concerts coming up with Godsmack.
Well, thank you. And a great interview. And Windsor, I can't wait. I love Canada. Yes. Oh, Canada.